If nothing else, anime has become mainstream, and I couldn't be happier. It's much easier now to find people to share thoughts about your favorite series or simply chat about anime in general. But unlike the current situation, anime wasn't so widespread back in the day. Of course, there were popular shows like Dragon Ball, Sailor Moon, Naruto, One Piece, and even Bleach, all of which had solid reputations, and a large fan base outside Japan. However, the level of success this medium enjoys today is unparalleled. The internet played a significant role in this evolution, making numerous series accessible to a broader audience. Yet, a few years ago, anime watching mostly revolved around what aired on TV. That's also how my anime journey began. Just a heads up, I've watched over 100 anime, and as you can imagine, it's impossible to include everything in this discussion. I'll focus on those that left the greatest impact or resonated with me the most. So, let's go! Like many people my age, I started watching Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! On TV without having any idea what anime was. It felt distinctly different compared to shows like Strawberry Shortcake or As Told by Ginger, both of which I adored wholeheartedly. The art style was strikingly unique, and the storylines often delved deeper than your average cartoon. I'd watch them occasionally without forming a strong connection to the narratives. I've never been fond of card games, so the battles in Yu-Gi-Oh! Didn't captivate me. What kept me from switching channels was the dynamic between Yugi and the Pharaoh. I vividly remember feeling genuinely sad when they parted ways in the end. It's the only episode I can clearly recall. As for Pokemon, I stayed for the adorable creatures, especially Ponyta and Rapidash. Then there was Tokyo Mew Mew. All I remember is an episode where a character turns into a mermaid. That's it. For all I know, it might not have existed at all and could be just a figment of my imagination. Things got serious when I watched Shaman King. I absolutely loved it. Let me just say up front, I'm aware there's a new version. I tried watching it but felt the pacing was rushed. It moved too quickly, not allowing significant moments to sink in or giving many characters enough time to properly develop. Perhaps it improves later, but I couldn't get past Len's introduction. That said, the original Shaman King became one of my all-time favorites. The fight scenes were exhilarating and Yo was such a fascinating character. Looking back now, I realize his laid-back and caring nature is a hallmark of the typical shonen protagonist. Yet, back then, his calm demeanor and genuine concern for those around him made him stand out. Whenever he turned serious, I'd get goosebumps and freeze. It was that captivating. While Yo was intriguing, the character I developed the biggest crush on was Ren. At first I couldn't stand him, but then he became part of the group, showing his softer sides and concern for others, so he quickly became one of my favorites. I've read the manga and overall I think the plot is better executed there. The Elemental Warriors arc in particular stands out as the highlight for me, alongside Horo's backstory. However, I prefer the anime's ending. If I remember correctly, it has been a while, so my memory may be hazy. In the manga, after Hao becomes the Shaman King, he annihilates humanity, leaving only the main team to confront him. A massive battle ensues, and eventually, a train carrying everyone we know appears. His mother's soul, whose death profoundly impacted him, emerges from the train, slaps him, and with everyone's collective resolve, he has a change of heart. He decides not to destroy humanity, yet. Instead, he grants them time to prove they deserve to live on Earth. If they fail, he'll carry out his plan. There's a continuation involving Hana, Yo, and Anna's child, but I'm not a fan of sequels focusing almost entirely on the next generation. I read parts of it, like Talumi's design. In both the manga and the new anime, the character designs are stunning. Allumi's in particular is my favorite visually, and eventually dropped it. So I don't know how everything turns out since it's still ongoing and I don't plan to finish it. On the other hand, the anime had an original ending because back then it eventually caught up with the manga. The scene where Hao rips out Yo's soul and eats it, alongside with everyone's shocked reactions, felt significantly more intense and impactful than the manga's conclusion. That moment left me completely stunned when I first saw it. However, I wasn't a fan of the final battle involving the giant Amidamaru and the Spirit of Fire. Personally, I believe the Elemental Warriors would have been a much better choice to take him out without the whole train sequence, though that might just be my opinion. Over the years, I rewatched the anime whenever it aired on air. Eventually though, another series came along that completely shook things up for me. At this point, Avatar became a turning point in my connection with anime. Yet, because some consider it a cartoon rather than an anime, I'm unsure if I should even include it. Although it was created by a Korean studio and heavily influenced by shonen tropes as well as the anime art style, it was primarily distributed to American audiences with an original English dub. For these reasons, the terms cartoon and anime both apply to it in different ways. Personally, I categorize it as a cartoon, but the argument for it being an anime is equally valid. This duality leaves me torn, so I decided to briefly mention it here without delving too much into detail. Avatar was incredibly influential for me, and I'm already working on a script to showcase just how much I adore it. Nevertheless, Avatar expanded the range of AMV's awards, introducing me to even more anime. Around the same time, I stumbled across the entire Shaman King series on YouTube and ended up rewatching it there. These two series remain the only ones I've rewatched multiple times from start to finish. To be honest, I recently tried rewatching Shaman King again, and until the point where they board the plane, the pacing felt quite slow. Despite that, the significant moments still pack a punch and leave their mark. For instance, I can't even attempt to compare the original scene where Faust extracts Manda's life force with a newer version. The original stands superior in terms of atmosphere and staging. If you enjoy the newer adaptation, that's fantastic, but for me, it simply doesn't measure up. Afterwards came the anime that had me binge-watching series after series. It marked the beginning of my more serious anime viewing phase. From that point onward, aside from Avatar and the ongoing debate about its classification, I began actively following new series and watching them from start to finish without knowing much about them beforehand. That pivotal anime was The Familiar of Zero. It was an action-packed romantic series about a sorceress tasked with summoning a familiar. Unlike her peers who conjured creatures, she ended up summoning a human boy from Earth. It's been years since I watched it, so many of the details are hazy. However, it was during this time that I discovered Japan's penchant for fanservice. It can be rather extravagant and bizarre. Over time, I learned to overlook it in most cases, and thankfully, many modern anime have toned it down a bit. Even so, fanservice has left an unpleasant aftertaste in several series, including the one I watched next. I was watching AMV compilations, and there he was, a pink-haired boy beating people up in multiple videos. At first I ignored it, but his constant appearances piqued my curiosity. A quick search led me to an anime called Fairy Tail. I watched the first few episodes, and it felt like my brain chemistry was altered because I ended up devouring all 171 episodes available at the time within a week. Granted, it was during summer vacation and I had plenty of free time, but still, the thing with Fairy Tail is that in the anime community there's almost an unspoken rule of being ashamed to enjoy it. The series was flooded with fan service, an aspect that only worsens as it progresses. The female characters are heavily over-sexualized, which often undermines their development. It is genuinely disappointing because Lucy is one of my favorite anime characters in general. She starts off as a weaker character, but grows into an absolute powerhouse in the later chapters. This issue affects almost every character, even those underage, which, yikes. I completely agree with the criticism that the fanservice in Fairy Tail is excessive. Most anime, especially shonen aimed at younger audiences, include some fanservice, but it usually diminishes as the series matures, becoming easier to overlook. Unfortunately, in Fairy Tail, it becomes increasingly intrusive, and I really dislike that aspect. Another glaring issue lies with the power system. Apart from Erza, who somehow defeats a dragon and destroys a comet despite having every bone broken except one, many battles eventually feel repetitive and meaningless. Among the fights, Lucy's and Wendy's stand out as the most creative. Grey's earlier battles and even Natsu's were engaging initially, but grew tiresome as the series went on. Fight after fight, the fight became predictable, with characters emerging victorious with minimal challenges or consequences. For me, the Tartaros arc stands out as the best in the series, followed by the Infinity Clock arc and the first part of the Grand Magic Games. I didn't even bother with the final arc of the series, read the manga, felt disappointed, and dropped the anime entirely. The 100-Year Quest had some fantastic moments for Lucy, and there was even a moment for Natsu when he consumed igneous flames, but over time it too fell into repetitive patterns. Despite my criticism, I have to acknowledge how much the first part of Fairy Tail and the Tartaros arc meant to me. It was one of my favorite anime during that period, making its later decline all the more disappointing. However, amidst all the flaws, Fairy Tail introduced me to a pairing and a scene that changed everything for me. I've watched the fair share of romance anime, but very few couples have the kind of chemistry that Natsu and Lucy share, or at least shared until the Tartaros arc. Since then, their dynamic has lacked many memorable moments, but the scene of them chasing each other into the golden fields still moves me to tears every time I watch it. Not to mention the scene where Lucy falls from the sky and Natsu rushes to save her, another one I rewatch frequently. At this point, I continue reading the manga mainly for their story. They aren't a couple, and it's been a decade. It needs to happen. They deserve a satisfying conclusion, and I sincerely hope Hiro delivers it. Please, they deserve the world. After Fairy Tail, I went to watch over 100 anime, but some stood out as particularly meaningful for me. Among them, there is Yona of the Dawn, and it is criminally underrated. The writing is beautiful, the characters are endlessly likable, and the romance is absolute perfection. The series carries significantly tragedy within its main cast. Zeno and Sina's backstories especially broke me, yet I couldn't pick just one character to connect with. I adore all of them, and I'm rooting for their happy endings. The story centers on Yona, who is in love with her cousin, a common occurrence in the royal families, and plans to marry him. However, when they grow up, he kills her father, which would make for an awkward wedding at least, forcing her to escape with Huck, her childhood friend and bodyguard, to survive. In her quest to reclaim her kingdom, she sets out to find the legendary dragon warriors. Initially spoiled and dependent, Yona undergoes tremendous growth, finding strength within herself and overcoming her trauma. While the series has some reverse harem dynamics, where the male characters are drawn to Yona, their connection to her is rooted in her dragon blood rather than romantic interest. Most of the dragons are her friends, not her admirers. The true romance lies with Huck, and their bond evolves beautifully over time. They share so many heartwarming moments, and I appreciate that their relationship doesn't wait until the last 4 episodes to develop. Yona of the Dawn deserves a complete adaptation. We need the next seasons, and at this point, it hit me. I've already reached page 4 and this video is turning out to be massive, so I'll stop here and save the rest for part 2 in the next video. I would absolutely love to hear about your own journey into the anime world and your thoughts on the series I mentioned. Make sure to share your stories in the comments below. Also, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. It really helps a lot. Hit that bell icon to get notified whenever a new video goes up, and see you soon. Bye!